And a good afternoon to all of you. It's good to be back here in Chennai. I haven't been here for a while, and it's good to see some old friends, as well as hopefully make some new ones today. So Siv has given you a bit of an introduction of what the Internet Society is, so I won't repeat all that, other than to say that we have close to 70,000 individual members around the world, out of which about 21,000 are in the Asia-Pacific region. Out of the Asia-Pacific region itself, we have roughly about 8,000 here in India. And of course, we have 4 chapters in India. Chennai is one of them, as well as Kolkata, where we had an event yesterday, and Bangalore, and then this Delhi chapter as well. India being what it is, I think it's quite important for all of us to understand that India has a role to play in the internet as well. With current statistics telling us that there's some 3 billion users worldwide, or thereabouts. India is predicted to have about 300 million by the end of this year, or early next year, according to industry estimates. If you then compare that to the world total, of course, that's nearly 10% of the world's internet population, which is quite significant. But if you look at India's population itself, 300 million out of 1.2 billion isn't all that much. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to get penetration rates up. As the internet has evolved, the internet started as basically a defense project in the US, under the US military's, one of the US military's programs. But over time, it has evolved to become perhaps what is the most significant thing that's ever happened to the world to this day. And the reason I say that is because it's not about technology, it's not about access to the internet. If you ask a technical person what is the internet, they'll probably define it as a network of networks, in a technical sense. So there's a network here, there's a network there, we connect them together, and then they connect to a bigger network and another network across the city, across the country, across the world, etc., etc. But the internet today also connects people, and it also connects ideas. And I think that's why the value of the internet has grown significantly in recent times. Now, when something becomes so strong and so pervasive across the world, not just in one geography, but across the world, obviously people start taking attention. So what we see now at the international stage in particular is that people are more interested in what the internet is, how it operates, who owns it. That's a very popular question. Who owns the internet? No one owns the internet. We all do. We are all part of the network. We connect to the network, therefore we grow the network by connecting to it. So another question that pops up is who's the regulator? Who's the central control of the internet? Again, there is no central control for the internet. The reason the internet has been so successful, one of the reasons, of course, is because it's highly decentralized. It's a network of networks. It's people who work together to ensure that the greater good remains in the internet and around it. We have ICANN, of course, which helps coordinate the domain name function as well as the IP address functions through the regional internet registries. But they're fundamentally all technical work that needs to be done. We have the IETF, which my organization is the organizational home for. Shiva mentioned that it's the Internet Engineering Task Force. What that does is creates the standards that make the internet run. So again, it's a very technical exercise. Leaving the technical things aside, the value of the network, and I'll repeat that again, the value is you. It's people who use the network. If no one uses the internet has no value. And therefore, we are able to find new ways and means to use the internet. How we use the internet determines how it grows into the future. This morning when I met up with Siva, I was giving him an example. Last week, I was at a UN-related meeting in Korea. And that meeting had people from all across the wider Asia-Pacific regions, so Central Asia, West Asia, Southeast Asia, and Oceania there. And there was one particular gentleman, without naming countries and names and all that, who, he was sitting next to me, and I looked at him and I said, "You look very tired. What's up? Have you been up all night?" He said, "Yes, I have been." I said, "What, is there something wrong perhaps back home and you need to be, connected back to the network or whatever you had to do?" He said, "No. The problem is back home I don't have a network. I don't have the internet. So I've spent all night downloading things, burning them onto DVD so I can take them back home and share with my friends and colleagues and acquaintances." So then I grilled him a little bit more. I said, "No, what do you mean you don't have access to the internet? Because I know the internet exists in your country." He said, "Yes, it does, but it does not exist in the manner that you are accustomed to. I don't have access to YouTube. I don't have access to Facebook. I don't have access to Twitter. I don't have access to Vimeo, etc." And his list went on. So then I asked him, okay, so what sort of stuff are you actually downloading? He said, well, I started with Wikipedia, and he actually had 3 computers set up in his room doing all this, okay? Not just one, but three devices in his room. He was downloading parts of Wikipedia. He was downloading, capturing YouTube videos and saving them. Of course, some of the stuff that he was downloading was what we would call illegal. He was doing copyright infringement. But for someone from somewhere where they have no access, just talking to him and realizing that what he misses and that what I take for granted, it was a bit of an eye-opener for me. And knowing that I was going to be in India this week, I was in Kolkata yesterday at an event. Today I'm here. Tomorrow I'm in Delhi for the rest of the week for a couple of other events. And most of those events, or in fact all of them, are talking about the internet and where we go from here and et cetera, et cetera. So, I think we're very fortunate that we have a relatively free access to the internet. We can do what we want, more or less within reason with it. But also take a moment to think about people who don't have that access. We have a lot of neighboring countries in this region which have that issue. So, we should also perhaps not take things for granted. There's always forces around that will try and disrupt. Because, one thing the internet has done and continues to do is it empowers people. Okay. At no time in humankind's history have we had this much power at the individual level. And through the internet and various tools that exist on the internet, for example, social media, we're able to take our single individual voices and amplify them as a collective. Right? And again, you don't need to seek permission to do that. You don't need to file requests or fill in documents to do that. You can do it because the internet empowers you to do so. Of course, it's also important to make safe and responsible use of the internet. I don't think we want to be so disruptive that we break the law and do things which are not either ethically or morally correct. So there's always this guidance. And all of us growing up, particularly I'm of Indian heritage, although I was not born here, we all grow up with the culture that is given to us, that we have a very rich cultural history that goes back thousands of years. And one of the reasons that culture has survived is because we are taught to respect others. So just like we respect each other in the physical environment, so we must on the online environment. And just being responsible in how we use the internet and what we do with it, that will help us to counter when people start saying, no, we need censorship because you people can't make the decision, we'll make the decision for you. That could be the government, it could be a regulator, it could be law enforcement, whoever that may be. But the point is that no single person really can control, if it's you who must decide what is good for you and what's not good for you, or your kids or those around you. I don't think we want to give that responsibility to someone you don't even know. It could be 4 people sitting in a dark room in Delhi wearing khaki suits making the decision of what you can view, what you can not view, and what you can do and what you cannot do online. And all this that I just have described is what internet governance is all about. In fact, well, it's one bit of what internet governance is all about. There's many aspects to internet government. There's human rights issues that people are talking about. There's the actual technical part of internet governance. There's the policy part of it. And then there's what I call the social layer, which is what I've just talked about. The ability of users to use the internet to better their social, economic, and personal development. So when it comes to the topic of internet governance, most of us are, if you're not involved in the industry or in the field, you don't really care all that much about it. What you're more concerned about is your internet fast enough? Can you watch that streaming video or watch that new latest song and dance movie or whatever, video clip or whatever it is that you're interested in? Or you communicate with friends, or you get into various social media tools like Facebook or Twitter or what may you have. But the point remains that in order for you to be able to do that freely and without restrictions, discussions around internet governance will determine what you can do and what you can't do. So it's very important to have some level of interest in internet governance. That doesn't mean you go to these big conferences overseas and spend resources. We don't have the resources to do that. However, there's some in the community who do that. The Internet Society is one such organization. And we like to think that, if you look at our slogan, it says, we don't have it anywhere up here, but it says the internet is for everyone. So that doesn't mean it's just for the technical community or the business community. It's for everyone. Everyone who can use it to better their lives. be it economically, socially, or at a personal level. So having some interest in internet governance is good, because sometimes there are cases when we need to rely on the larger internet community to amplify that voice. Remember what I said, you all have individual voices, but on the internet, that collective amplifies that voice so much louder. So when people, when governments or other institutions may start to take actions which would be detrimental to the future evolution of the internet, it's very important for the user community to rise up and say, no, we can't do this. One example, of course, you may have all heard about was the surveillance issues in the last couple of years that have come to the fore, where certain governments around the world have been essentially spying on people from just about every country. And if their constitution did not allow them to spy on their own citizens, they would get an allied country to spy on their citizens on their behalf. I don't think we would deny that spying and intelligence gathering has not existed. It has existed for literally hundreds of years, ever since humankind decided that we must have conflict in order to either capture lands or loot things or whatnot. But what it has done is that what I guess we didn't realize was how wide the surveillance issues were, and it was indiscriminate. It was it was just like if you go fishing, you cast a net, right? You cast a net into the sea and you pull the net in. You can't determine which fish you pull in. Whatever the net casts over, everything gets pulled in. Then the fisherman will decide what he wants to keep and what he wants to throw away out of that, right? So casting that sort of surveillance, I think, was an issue, and you could see people around the world rising against that. If we look at 2010, the Arab Spring, the uprising in the North African countries, they used social media. The internet did not cause those regimes to fall, but the internet was used to empower people to be able to collect, to engage in the protests, and to put their voices across. So the internet, it's become a really, really powerful medium. It's got a whole lot to offer, but the way we govern it now and into the future will determine how much more successful and valuable it will be going into the future. So I won't bore you any further with internet governance issues and all that. I think I see a lot of nodding heads, so I'm sure all of you are quite familiar with at least some of the things I've said. I do hope that you continue to be engaged in the conversations. If you're not a member of the Internet Society, please do join us. You don't have to be an active contributor every day, but even if you contribute once every so often, when something matters to you, I think it'll all help us along quite significantly. So with that, thank you very much. I look forward to some great discussions later this afternoon and perhaps engaging with all of you later. Thanks so much.